Hi everyone, welcome to this NTLF in conversation where we are discussing a very important topic, right? The topic is how do we balance trust, autonomy, and control in this AI agentic world, right? And with us we have Dania from Microsoft. She needs no introduction, but again, I think Dania, would you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Ankit, and thanks for the opportunity. My name is Danya. I lead all cloud solutions for Microsoft India, which is the largest technical and solution sales team in Microsoft India across business solutions, security, Azure, AI, and our productivity stack. So, have been with Microsoft for 17 years in multiple roles, and a pleasure to be on this panel and talk to you about the topic of AI and how do we balance trust, autonomy, and control. Thanks, Ankit.
Excellent. Thank you, Danya. Thank you for spending time with us. So, so let's think through together, right? Again, uh, we have been using analytics AI for ages, and Gen AI definitely changed the whole world, right? I think it democratized AI a lot, right? But with that, I think it also aroused a lot of questions on trustworthiness, right? A lot of questions on safety, right? So probably first thought I would want to contemplate with you, Tania, is can AI truly be trustworthy or trust a moving target? And how do you see this whole evolving?
Sure. I think before we jump straight into the question of whether AI can be trustworthy or not, I just want to sort of bring in the latest that is happening in the world of AI, right? We recently, Microsoft published something called the Work Trend Index. We do this on a regular basis where we take feedback from knowledge workers across the globe, around 31 countries, and we publish the latest what's happening in the space of productivity. And I'm bringing in productivity and operational efficiency in the context of AI, because that's the place where it influences it the most. So what is being called, 2025 is being called as the frontier firm age, the year of the frontier firm, where we are talking about the emergence of an entirely new organization. Basically, an organization where you can bring in intelligence on tap, on demand intelligence. And they're talking about it as phases. Initially, AI and agents was helping us with our work. Then we've reached a point now where they're acting more as digital colleagues, right? They're very much a part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And this is called the human agent teams, where there's a combination of human beings and agents acting as joint colleagues. The third phase that is envisaged, and I think it's not, rocket science to get there. I'm sure we'll very soon get there, is where we are moving to a world where it's called the agent boss, meaning the human age acts as the boss, but the agent is operating everything else within the organization. So, I think in this context, it becomes a very important part to think about when we are moving to that phase three, where the human is acting as the boss, but all the work and autonomy is still given to the agents. How much do you balance or find the right balance between providing the AI, the context, the potential risks, the ethical implications, right? And yet keeping under consideration that everything that it helps us should be aligned with human values and goals. So, so I just thought I'll take a minute and give that context. But I think to make sure that, there is a balance between trust, autonomy, and control, we obviously need to make sure that there is human oversight. Anything that the agents do, there is oversight so that especially some critical tasks, and there is contextual autonomy, right? There are some tasks which are de rigueur, you can let it go to the agents, but there are some complex tasks with high ethical considerations where strict guidelines should be employed, and the human has to be available at all points in time for oversight. Likewise, from a trustworthiness perspective, transparency and explainability. So in Microsoft, we call it something as the responsible AI framework. Fairness, privacy, ensuring that there is safety, security, and there is complete trustworthy computing in the amount of data that is fed to the AI. that the data doesn't go back to train the main models, that the data is used contextually, what you have fed it to give benefits to the organization that where AI is being used. So we call it as trustworthy computing, where we bring in the elements of responsible AI and we bring in the elements of what we call as the secure future initiative, because along with AI growing, there has also been a growing proliferation of cybersecurity incidents. So I think it's a fair balance and a mix. Long answer, Ankit, but I think that's where I would like to sort of bring this together.
Yeah. I think Dania, I completely aligned, right? I think as we see the movement of AI into agentic and agentic into our life, right? In fact, a lot of processes what we do in our life are getting augmented with agentic workflows, right? I think we have to think through all of that. And as NASCOM, I think we pivoted at least responsible AI governance in India, right? We run something called responsible AI hub
Indeed,
since
I'm
2021.
aware.
And we when we were formulating this, we studied around 195 different frameworks across the globe, right? And we found, I think, 9 principles which were very key. Were some of them what you told, right? Like inclusivity, uh, reliability, safety, privacy, security, transparency, explainability, accountability, uh, compliance, and reinforcement of human values and human-centered approach. I think
Indeed.
all of this is very important to think through. Thank you. So let me move on to the next thought which I have. Right. Again, we know right now we mostly apply AI using a risk-based approach. Right. I think the more riskier it is, you have definitely a human in the loop. Right. Again, for the less risky use case, also you definitely have a human loop. But again, could you envisage or could you think one day, when we have this AI, which probably is moving from agentic to autonomous, right? The AI can ignore human instructions for a better outcome as far as it will see. But again, do you think is there a possibility of bypassing that? Tadi?
Yeah, good question actually. And as I talked about the evolution of the frontier firm, right? We are saying that there will still be an agent boss, which is a human, right? And in fact, there is also the prediction that very soon an IT department will become something like a HR department managing a whole set of agents, right? And that like a HR department manages employees, IT department is going to manage a whole set of agents who have obviously been deployed there for better outcomes, faster outcomes, more predictable outcomes, etc. But having said that, there is always that risk that there are some automations or flows that really need a human to come in the middle, and something goes out of whack. For instance, even in our own Azure OpenAI, we have something called Azure AI content safety feature, right? So and it's like a moving pane where you can decide the extent to which you want to be strict with it, or you want to be a little more relaxed with it. And it is very contextual, I would think. It needs to be very adaptive, it needs to be very contextual. So I think depending on the scenario where you are using it, for instance, we've heard of situations. In fact, I'm just recalling that in the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, we had a recent incident. While agents have been brought in to help workers, it's turned the other way around, that workers are being penalized for ignoring some of the AI recommendations, because even though they know better. Now that is actually counterproductive, because that means you're over relying on the AI recommendation over and beyond what the workers in that organization have gained by virtue of experience. So that is where I think it can go a little off track. For instance, in healthcare, prediction of diseases, and accordingly the medication that you're providing, etc. While there can be a whole lot of recommendations that can come in, and there are so many positive use cases of healthcare where we are talking about healthcare becoming affordable and available to even the remotest corners of a country like India, by virtue of AI being in the middle, but yet we are expecting that a doctor does that discretionary approach on what to recommend and what not, right? But in such cases, I think the context has to be absolutely applied, that one needs to have the agent as and the human as the boss and the agent as the person who's listening to the boss. So we need to be very careful with healthcare. Likewise, in financial institutions, if AI is being leveraged to be able to give recommendations or personalize offerings to customers, is it actually looking at the risk, the fraud, and the risk possibilities, and then recommending with the right guidelines is something that is extremely critical. So I think there are some de rigueur workflows that can be outsourced to agents. Yet there are certain scenarios where one would always want to have the human in the middle to be able to monitor the autonomy and constrain it to an extent that the agents are not walking away with disastrous results.
Yeah, I think wonderful point of view, right? That brings me to the next question or the point I want to contemplate uh, is do we need to rethink the accountability and decision making framework, right? When we are deploying any AI or agents or any of Gen AI sort of use cases, do we need to think on recalibrating the accountability decision framework? What do
Yeah.
you think, Daniel?
Yeah, in a way, I sort of, I know, in a way, I sort of addressed that in that example also I gave. Like the level of autonomy that we are granting to AI should actually depend on the nature of the task. For tasks that are well defined, predictable, and limited potential for great damage, right? There, I think absolutely we should trust the agent with more autonomy. Otherwise, we will be limiting the agent and not getting what we want as a result out of that agent. However, for tasks that are more complex, tasks that have ethical implications, where the human oversight becomes extremely critical, like the healthcare example I gave you, like the financial institution example that I gave you, etc. I think there should be a certain safeguarding and a decision and a constraint framework where we are minimizing the risk and the potential for harm that the agent can create. Transportation, for instance, right? We are talking about these cars which are driverless. At what extent? Obviously, it may not be that every situation the car would be able to guess and take the right decisions, whereas there is a driver in the car for all said and done. So the human driver would be more present, alert, and might take some decisions which will need to supersede that of what the AI is suggesting or implementing. So it's very contextual, and I think one will need to apply the right autonomy for the agent in the right circumstance, and thereby in the right vertical or the right use case, the appropriate decision making framework will have to be implemented. Ankit, I think that's the way we discern on. It's something like an adaptive governance, for lack of a better word. So as AI grows, one needs to keep pace with AI by putting the right governance framework on the right use cases.
Yeah, the high risk use case is probably more, human in the loop and more sort of stricter governance, and probably less riskier. I think some recommendation, I think probably more lenient.
Yeah,
But
let me give you an example, for instance, and a very interesting example. For instance, if you go into Azure OpenAI and say, hey, we have something called M365 Copilot, which is our own first-party SaaS offering, right, which is embedded into our Microsoft 365 stack. And, if you start asking it questions like, hey, I'm feeling very lonely and depressed, can you give me some methodologies by which I can possibly think of putting an end to my life? I'm just bringing a very extreme example, right? And now the content safety feature will immediately, one thing it can do is obviously not give a direct answer, right? And it will stop right there and say, hey, would you want to go to Microsoft Counseling? We have something called Microsoft Cares. If you're feeling depressed, would you like to go talk to that team? And it can possibly give the links where you can connect with a doctor, etc., or some health workers who are there on standby to help. The next wave of this on empathy is where it says, hey, while there is Microsoft Cares, do you have people around you? Is family with you? Are colleagues around you? Can you just go out for a cup of coffee with a colleague? So the amount of empathy that needs to be brought in to ensure that It is just not AI giving a direction which can potentially be disastrous, but treating that entire conversation with empathy to bring in real life support to the individual who's going through that scenario.
Yeah. Mm. Good insight. I think let me also move to the next point, which I was thinking. Uh, basis your purview currently and the customers you work in, right? Which industries do you think will be benefited most from agentic AI, right? And what sort of caution do you think you're wanting to provide those sort of sectoral folks when they are implementing agentic AI in their industry?
Sure, Ankit. I mean, I would think almost every industry is superbly excited with it, and everybody is trying to create projects that they can, I think in the last 18, 19 months, they've been toying around with projects that, now they are trying to get into full scale within the organization and derive the ROI out of it. But excuse me. But if I were to call out the ones that are most excited and actually bringing it into real life scenario, absolutely the financial sector, right? Where agentic AI is used for fraud detection, automating the training, customer service. India is, the contact center market with the huge BPO industry sitting out of India and providing services not only within India, but even globally. The ability of agentic AI to be able to bring in information to support that contact center agent. One is the voice bot itself, the agent acting, where there is no actual agent, but the AI is acting as the agent. But more importantly, to make it very contextual and enriching for the customer experience, agent assisted, AI assisted agent services, right? So getting the entire history of that customer, what are the challenges, what can possibly one personalize an offering to that customer to be able to retain that customer longer, right? Likewise, if there are outbound calls, what sort of questions or what sort of programs can one present to the customer, so that you're able to onboard more customers. So I think this entire contact center across industries, be it finance, be it retail, be it manufacturing, is becoming a really important one where agentic AI is being applied. In manufacturing, what I have seen is production planning, being able to manage the entire supply chain proactively, thereby able to reduce waste, reduce travel time, enhance production efficiency. Likewise, on the shop floor, predictive maintenance. Like if these parameters get to these levels, and possibly it could getting there and doing a proactive maintenance even before the machine fails, right? So those are scenarios in manufacturing, production planning, and predictive maintenance. In financial services, more on fraud detection, customer service engagement. Healthcare, we actually spoke about that, right? Improving diagnostics, predicting outcomes. Not everywhere you might have the best of doctors, the specialists available. Even the generic doctors can actually take advice from AI, and they bring in their context to be able to support their patients through tough situations. Logistics is another place where, and I spoke about it in the context of manufacturing, optimizing routes, managing inventory, all of this are scenarios. Retail is another place, great customer experiences, personalized product recommendations, all of that. And now there is this advent of quick commerce, right? Where there are dark stores everywhere, anywhere to anywhere, in 10 minutes things arrive. That is another place where, and the delivery mechanisms, the food delivery mechanisms, those are all channels where we are seeing OpenAI being leveraged very, very actively. And the one with caution, I think we spoke about it, right? The one with caution, obviously, the industry that I would think the topmost is the healthcare industry. I would also think automobile industry, where we are talking about driverless cars and AI acting as the drivers. But in the overall context, I think, and we sort of touched upon it in the beginning, with the advent of AI, the advent of cybersecurity challenges is also rising quite a bit, right? The threat actors challenging governments, bringing in, and harnessing the power of technology to pull out data in very sinister and come out with sinister outcomes, etc. So cybersecurity, one needs to be very clear that data security and cybersecurity needs to be taken care of so that there is no negative impact of leveraging AI. Likewise, ensuring that AI is within the regulatory and legal compliance requirements in that particular in that particular country. Especially healthcare and financial sector, I think, is most sensitive to this. So making sure that that is taken care of. And I think, yeah, I would sort of summarize by saying the places to be careful about is data security, cyber security, legal and regulatory compliances when it comes to leveraging AI.
Great. I think you give a very good, sort of overview of sector and use cases, right? So thank you for that. I think probably a last question from me, and very quick one, a quick input needed from you is how do you see, future of AI and agentic AI? More like an assistant, a partner, a competitor? What do you see, Tanya?
The competitor is the last thing I wanted to be. In today's world, we have enough competition from our own peer communities. So agents are the last ones that I want to be seen as competition. But I think it's been a great journey, Ankit. Even, because Microsoft had the first mover advantage in our partnership with OpenAI, right? And we have infused AI into every product category of ours, intrinsically. So I think the assistant is the word that comes. And now we've moved into a partner space where we are looking at AI, especially, for instance, I talked about M365 Copilot, right? And we are talking about Copilot Chat, which is wall to wall, where it is completely safe, secure, and enterprise data protected. Wrong data does not land up in the wrong hands to be able to leverage within an organization. So within the ambit of an organization's data security and RBAC policies, how one can leverage AI as an assistant to be able to help and automate repetitive tasks is the most important one. The second place, and this is in the context of M365 Copilot and Copilot Chat. The second place where I'm seeing it is, like, for instance, our GitHub Copilot or our Azure AI Search. There is where I'm seeing a lot of partnership for the developer ecosystem, right? While developers love to code, they hate things like documenting what they've coded, right? And likewise, the other way around, taking a set of document during a knowledge transition and then creating fresh code when there is a change from one service provider to another. So these are places where GitHub Copilot really comes in handy because it works along with the developer and acts as a partner in terms of speeding up and ensuring that error-free, bug-free code and documentation is produced in the best possible situation. The third is obviously the competitor, and I would think the scenarios we spoke about, the autonomous vehicles, the healthcare, etc. While we can entrust these agents and AI to do complex tasks independently, we should absolutely ensure that there is a human acting as the boss of these agents to ensure that there is, that it doesn't get away with doing wrong activities and counterproductive activities.
Great. I think I will see assistant, partner, and even a coach, right? That's how I view it to be
And the
honest.
amount of time it saves, right? Just by making all of that information available is enormous. In fact, recently Microsoft announced two things. One is, like we have M365 Copilot, two incremental additions there, researcher and analyst. So the researcher is, you can check it out on YouTube. The researcher is beautiful. You just go there and ask for any topic and say, hey, researcher, can you do some research? For instance, assuming it is an FSI industry, which category or demographics of customers are applying for home loans or vehicle loans and what package works best for them. It will do an entire research across a period of time and come back and even suggest to you what are the campaigns to launch. Think of the benefits of this in something like product development, marketing, content creation. It's wonderful. Right. So similarly, something called analyst. So you throw a whole lot of Excel sheets at it and say, come back to me with the financial analysis on what are the key insights and what should I take away. It can do the entire thing in a jiffy. So these are two things very new from the Microsoft stable, researcher and analyst, that have been launched to help further on the productivity track.
Great. I think I will definitely try both of them. It will optimize and help me a lot. So with that, Dani, I think amazing discussion with you. Great insights, right? And I think as all good things have to end, so we will end the session. But just a parting comment, right? I think how I think I see it, how we see it, is the future of AI is not about machine replacing humans or human judgment. It's about expanding the frontier. What humans can achieve together with AI and agentic AI. I think, and if we design it wisely, AI is not just executing our commands, but it will really help humanity reach new horizons. I think that's what probably I will think, right. With that, thank you, Dania, again, and it was a amazing discussion with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankit, and thank you to the NASCOM team for the opportunity to share my thoughts and insights. Thank you.